I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to the Conversation with Al McFarlane. I'm glad to be here and glad to have you along as well. Like everybody else in the world, I am preoccupied, just focused on trying to understand what happened Tuesday in the general election. And I've been reaching out to friends and contacts and colleagues to get their point of view. I'm reaching out to you now, who may be joining us on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter or YouTube. I'm interested in how you are assembling the experience of the general election 2 days ago. I see Suzanne Namayanja has already responded on Facebook saying she's happy for Trump. Suzanne, love to hear what you mean by that and why you feel that way. Thank you for your comment. And if there are others who are listening or checking us out, tell somebody, tell your friends to jump on the comment section and tell us why you feel the way you do, good, bad, or indifferent, about the outcome and what you plan to do. Things having happened as they have. What's your next move? What are our next moves? What are the next moves of our country? What does the Trump presidency mean for what I'm saying for me as an African American, as a Black man, what does it mean? And how do we navigate towards what we thought and hoped and what we must still hold as a productive and positive future for ourselves, our family, and the people that follow us? Well, one of the people that I talk to a lot is Corey Day. Corey Day is a former executive director of the Minnesota DFL Party, Democratic Farmer Labor Party, and he also leads the Blue Ox Strategies Group as a advisor consultant. Corey, welcome to the conversation. Good to see you, my friend. How you doing?
How are you doing, Al? I think like most folks in this country, we're just trying to figure out what happened and figure out how to digest it and see what it's going to mean for fellows like you and me and others who are in different communities.
How did it play out for you? Let's go back to Monday. And when you were sort of looking at the wind down from at least, 100 days of hard work, but even really your work has been going on for a career on behalf of the principles of the Democratic Party and particularly the DFL of Minnesota. So here it is Monday night. And we've worked really hard for the past 100 days that we knew that Kamala Harris would be our candidate, and we had hope that all the stars were in alignment and that we would prevail on Tuesday. What was on your mind Monday at noon, Monday at 6 p.m.? What were you thinking?
I've had for the week leading up to election day, I've had just kind of not the best feelings, just because I was just looking at certain numbers around the country, looking at certain demographic groups we needed to perform.
Your sound is coming in and out.
Okay.
Maybe you can unplug and plug back in because you're getting garbling.
But you know what?
Yeah, we've got you muted for a second and come back and we'll try to get it. Now unmute again now.
There we go. Is that better?
Right now, so far. If it gets bad, we'll tell you.
Wearing earbuds. So, I think for the week leading up to it, I had, like anyone, I had a pit in my stomach. But I thought the way that the vice president closed out the campaign so positive. I thought, the fact that she was talking about looking forward was something that finally I was starting to feel pretty good about where we were come Monday. I thought looking after Trump's rally at Madison Square Garden, I figured, most of America kind of saw the colors that he was bringing forth. And, he didn't really hide with some of those folks who were giving speeches and some of the things that were said, kind of how they felt about certain segments of this country. So I was feeling pretty good on Monday that our closing argument was strong. I thought we communicated well to the American people. And I was feeling pretty good going into Election Day.
And so then when the first numbers come out, we both expected them to unfold the way they did, with early numbers coming in red pretty much, but that we knew there were key states with large numbers that would show up a little later because they were so big. We also were paying attention to the so-called blue wall states. Describe to me what happened as you were watching and monitoring. Where were you? Were you at home or at a
Yes.
watch party or on
Yes.
the road?
I was at the Intercontinental Hotel, which was the DFL, and kind of all the Democrats from Senator Klobuchar and the House caucus. Everyone kind of gathers there at the Intercontinental in St. Paul. So, I would tell you, I got nervous on Tuesday at around 4 o'clock, and I will tell you why. That's when the first numbers kind of came in from the exit polls. So, with the exit polls, what happened? We started to see that 70% of America was not happy with the direction of the country, or they were not satisfied with the way things were. And so that gave me hesitation. And the other thing that gave me a lot of hesitation was 41% approval rating for Joe Biden. This was at 4 p.m. That's some pretty strong headwinds. So when, more than a majority of the country is unsatisfied, and 41% of the country, you have a 41% approval rating, which is one of the lowest in modern time for a president. That's a lot for the vice president to have to shoulder. And so I had concerns at that point.
Let me ask you, why were the approval ratings for President Biden so low, for the administration so low? Because it seemed to me that they have performed in a stellar fashion. I mean, bringing us through and out of the COVID crisis, I think saving the economy, turning it around, the stock market in the right direction. I wondered what they were talking about when I kept hearing them saying they were worse off. What were white people talking about in particular? Because all the white people I saw when I was saying this yesterday to Jeff Hayden, when I drive around through Costco and to the few restaurants that I frequent, the outdoor restaurants packed, jammed full.
Yeah.
My driving through the suburbs, and my internal observation is, boy, white folks living good. They having a good time. And so I didn't see what the source was for all this dissatisfaction that was being presented as a damnation of the economy.
Right.
That they were saying has gone totally south for them. What was I missing?
I don't think so I think it goes two ways, right? I mean, look, if I go and I look at my 401k, it's doing just fine. And I'm sure folks who have a lot more capital than me and a lot more investment in the stock market are doing just fine. I think there was an element with some folks where they felt, obviously because of COVID, because of the amount of money pumped into the system, you saw inflation and prices went up. And I think people were feeling that. And I think people were looking for someone to blame. But the one thing that as I look back on it now and I try to figure it out, because history is going to judge these 4 years of President Biden well. The amount of legislation he passed, what he did to get us out of COVID, bring in the CHIPS Act. I mean, I can go on and on. He's done what he was supposed to do. I think the biggest challenge we had is that because of his age, and I think that's just the reality with President Biden, he just wasn't able to sell it. So he did all these great things for this country, and he just couldn't get out there on the road and sell these infrastructure projects and talk about the good things, talk about the good legislation. And unfortunately, folks view it. They're hearing from social media and they're hearing from the kind of the Trump forces how that the sky is falling and the world's going to end. But the reality of it is that America has done pretty dang well the last 4 years. And every measurement you look at when it comes at the economy or finance, we are on top. We recover faster than any other country in the world. We're the envy of every other country in the world when it comes to our economy. So, it wasn't true. And to your point, folks were doing just fine. But one of the things that we just didn't sell it.
Well, so think about, we maintain a strong support for Israel. Number one, we raise questions about, the safety and the devastation Palestinians were feeling. So we took a path that I think was balanced. at one level, not for either side. Either side felt they needed more, but there was a balanced approach, I thought, one that called out what appeared to be sort of the misuse of power against a defenseless people, but at the same time talked about the historic and appropriate need for safety for the nation of Israel. We also, I think, maintained the appropriate position for the support of NATO in general and the Ukraine conflict in particular, mobilizing. So those things on the international front, I think, were good things. So, as I listen to a variety of the pundits, one of the things that comes up again and again was the billionaire class, even in the Democratic Party, the moneyed class, deciding that they didn't want Joe. Their assessment was one about Joe's capacity because of his age to navigate and lead.
Yeah.
How much discussion of that was there in your circle here in Minnesota? And is there a critique that makes sense about, the half a dozen or dozen donor class people saying, you know what, we got to find somebody else? And if they said that, did they have somebody else in mind other than Kamala Harris?
I think, I think as you see kind of folks start to play Monday morning quarterback on this, I think, what's going to be unfortunate as folks figure out what happened on Tuesday, one of the things that you're going to see kind of materialize is that they're going to say, Joe, the president put us in a bad position by not getting out earlier, right? And having us create this environment where we had more of a primary, where we had more of a runway for whatever candidate came forth. So, I mean, I think you're going to start hearing more and more of that. And, there's an element of that I feel, I agree with. I mean, this hurts me to say because, I worked for the president in 2020. We had a terrible day Tuesday. And if the president was on the ballot, it would have been even a worse day. So, the wins were where they were, unfortunately.
So what if he had actually resigned? What would have happened differently?
Well, I don't think I think him resigning wouldn't have changed anything because the reality is, I mean, as vice president, she's always going to be seen as part of the Biden administration.
Got it.
I think where he could have made a change, and I feel two ways about this, is that not running for reelection overall, but also I understand that the president didn't want to be a lame duck. It's hard to get things done when folks know you're not going to be around. But in all reality of it is that, it would have been nice to have an entire process, vet our candidates, choose our candidate. But I will tell you this, I think Vice President Harris ran as good of a campaign as you could for the amount of time she has. I think there is not much she did wrong. As we look at this, and as people will start doing their autopsy of this, it won't be because of Vice President Harris. We're going to look at certain segments of voters that say they were going to show up and didn't show up for us. As I would like to say, I think my Republican friends who are a little bit more like-minded, they all went home when the time came to go in the voting booth. Those who, that we were hoping that we were going to bring with us, I think at the end of the day, they still went with Trump. And that's clear just from the numbers. So I think there's a lot of different factors we're going to have to look at. But one of the factors I'm not going to put any blame on is the campaign that Vice President Harris ran, the enthusiasm she created. She was handed something with only 100 days left. And she made it work, and she fired up people, as folks like to say. And I think one of my friends was yelling at me about this yesterday. Once again, the black woman saved the Democratic Party, and Vice President Harris was definitely in the front lines for that.
So what lies ahead? Two fronts. One, what lies ahead for Kamala Harris, for the vice president? What's going to happen with her? Number two, what do you expect we're going to be experiencing? We, meaning the Democrats, people who supported Kamala Harris and who support a philosophy that is markedly different from that of the president-elect. What do you think is, because we were talking about the fears of retribution and wholesale shift. I mean, we will be seeing if Project 2025 is unfolded full bloom in the next several weeks. We know that there are several thousand people being vetted right now, already vetted, to move into positions of the administration of the new, government. What do you see unfolding?
Well, first I would say, that come, on Wednesday, the next presidential campaign already started in the Democratic Party. So you're going to see, Gavin Newsom, and you're going to see Whitman in Michigan. You're going to see even possibly Governor Walz run for president. You're going to see a litany of candidates run for president. There won't be any shortage of options and choices in 4 years from now. That much I can promise you.
Is that a good thing? Is that a good thing?
Yeah, it is. It is a good thing. I think it's a real good thing. I mean, the other thing that we should be a worry for all of us is not just the fact that we lost the presidency, but we lost the Senate, and we're probably going to lose the House. So the same way we've been blessed in Minnesota with a trifecta, well, they have a trifecta on the national level right now. And what we really need to be worried about is the fact that there are no guardrails, zero. Right now, the president-elect thinks he has an entire mandate to do all the things he talked about. He said it out loud. I hope folks ain't surprised when it happens, because he wasn't hiding it. Project 25 is right there online. So we have to stand the wall on this, but nothing will shock me. And when it comes to kind of the international affairs, I'm really worried about what's going to happen with Ukraine. I am extremely worried about that. The way that the president has this love affair with Russia, I'm extremely worried about that. I'm worried about, I'm hoping that we were going to get a ceasefire in Israel. Now with Trump, I am extremely worried about these things. And then obviously our Latino brothers all over this country should be extremely fearful from the deportation plan he has. And
should they? Because the vote didn't go for Harris; it went for Trump. I mean, so I think we make a mistake by broadly talking about Latinos as a community, because certainly not monolithic, and even more diverse than our community or any other.
And I'll save this for another show for us. But as we do this autopsy in the Democratic Party, our problem is we put everyone in buckets. I mean, you and I might have we might have grown up differently and have different education and different values, but the Democratic Party has been treated, we're two Black guys. We're not, I'm not a guy who might care more about the economy, and you might not be a guy who cares more about the environment. We're two brothers. That's how this party has seen folks, and this is going to be an issue that's going to have to be addressed. And I think we're seeing that obviously going to see that with the Latino community. Like you said, they're not monolithic. They are an extremely, like you said, more diverse than our community is. And I think
so is the Asian community.
All of these communities, you cannot wait to the last minute and just put them all in this bucket, this kind of racial bucket, which we've been doing. So that, now I'll save that for another show, but it's something that we do need to address as a party, and something we have to give a lot of thought to, for sure.
I was listening to Clay Kane, I think his name is, the author of the book Drifting, and his show on Sirius XM, The Urban View, I think the show was called, or the system is called. He was with Reese Colbert. Great show. He was saying, this is a few minutes ago before we signed on, that the Democratic Party is going to reform itself into the Democratic Party of 1990. I didn't get a chance to dig in deep, but my gut feeling is sort of an understanding of how the world was organized in 1990 in terms of the Democratic Party. How different was it then from where we are now? And what could he have been meaning when he said things like that?
I mean, I think he's going to talk about more when we became more of a centrist party. Those are the Clinton days you're going into. And that's when the party was, that's when you came up with NAFTA and all these other different very centrist policies that existed with the Democratic Party back in the 90s. It was definitely a much more, and I don't want to say center right, but we were much more of a center right party in the 90s when it came to some of these policies. That's when, Bill Clinton gave his Sister Soldier speech and things along those lines. And I think, I'm not sure if that's going to be the direction this party goes into, but, there's definitely going to be some soul searching that needs to happen as we look at ourselves and how we talk to different constituency groups and how we look as a party overall. Because the reality of it is, this entire country as a whole rejected not just Vice President Harris. I mean, we lost congressional seats, we lost the Senate. I mean, even here in Minnesota, the House is going to be tied if the two recounts come through. You want to talk about gridlock? We're going to have to make a deal for a speaker. We're going to have to make a deal when it comes to committee, for chairmanships. I imagine that nothing will get done when you're in that kind of form of government. And we only have a 1-seat majority in the Senate. So, I think we're just in a very peculiar place right now, peculiar position that we're going to have to really take a deep look inside of who we are and how we're going to move forward.
I'm Al McFarlane. This is The Conversation with Al McFarlane. Talking with Corey Day. He's the leader of Blue Ox Strategies. He is a former head of or executive director of the Minnesota DFL party. Corey, let me ask you to wear two hats and distinguish them. One is the hat of a functionary, and you've described a little bit the challenges that lie ahead for state government with the loss of the trifecta that meant so much to us last year. But so as a functionary in the party, locally and nationally, where do you see us going? And then set that aside, if you can, and step into your own personal history as a young and continually emerging leader in the Black community as a Black man. Are there maybe they're one and the same, maybe they're differences? What do you think?
I think one of the things that will be extremely interesting, because we did see, when it came to the African American vote, when it came to the Latino males, the African American males, we did see defections here. We saw a lot more folks really give a good and real look at the Republican Party. And obviously we saw that the fact that Latino men voted for President-elect Trump at a higher rate. I think what we're going to see happen for sure is that we're going to really have to look deep inside of ourselves and figure out what makes the most sense for us as a party, but me as a Black male, as a Black person, in this state, in this country, and in this party. And there's parts of it where, I love this party and I fought for the Democratic Party, but I'm also a Black male. And I also got to think what's best for you, me, and all of our other brothers and sisters.
What is best? What is best for you and me as Black people?
Look, I'm always going to be in the belief that we should never blindly follow one party over another. We should always look at the policies and the issues that are going to help us most. And I think what you're starting to see right now is just folks open their eyes and really look at things with kind of, I want to say with wider eyes, right? And I think one of the things that, as I said earlier, is that as a party, you and I as Black people, there are different issues that affect us differently, right? And I think as a party, you can no longer just throw us in the same bucket. You can no longer say that a 40-year-old African-American male with 3 kids and, with a master's degree is the same as a 25-year-old who's living in an urban area, who's not as educated with no kids. I'm sure they have very different values and very different thoughts about, what policies affect their lives. We have to start looking at it in that kind of sense. We can't just allow a party to kind of throw the same blanket over all of us. No offense, we don't see that happen with our good Jewish brothers. We don't see this happening with suburban women. There are policies that this party is drawn up for those folks, and they are particularly catering to those different universes. And God bless those universes for making them cater. We can no longer be blind and just walk in step, but we have to think, what's going to help your community? What's going to help our community? What can we do to make sure we move this party in a better direction? And you know what? And if that meant for a few of our brothers who, unfortunately, which I'm never going to be happy that they voted for Trump, but at least they looked at the policies and made their own decisions, and you can't hate them for that.
I know you've got to leave in a couple of minutes. Stay as long as you can, and
Yeah,
let me invite.
just a few minutes here. It's all, I can talk to you all day, Al. We always,
Well, I enjoy talking with you. I think this is an important conversation. Thanks to Jeff Hayden. He dropped a note. And Jeff, if you're still there, jump on the program because you and I had great conversations this week. Love to have you, Jeff, and others just jump in and move this conversation even forward. We'll send a link to you, Jeff. If you can join us, please do.
Yes, Senator. Maybe he's no longer a senator, but he's a senator to us, and he always will be. Senator Hayden brings such perspective and leadership to this community, and he's been awesome in these conversations. So I'm really, I listened to the conversation yesterday, and boy, that was a good one. You guys definitely, you chopped it up pretty good, and I hope more folks watch that. It was a really good discussion.
Well, I think we need to do more of that. I mean, one of the things that I'm concerned about, is the bench. This is a pivot a little bit. How do we create a deeper bench for leadership here in Minnesota? We have a fairly substantial increase, a massive increase of people of color in the legislature, but not a particularly deep increase of Black electeds at the legislature. Is that a problem for us? Is there a criticism that we have to shoulder and work through? What do you think?
I honestly do think that is a criticism we have to shoulder and work through. This is something I know I talked to my colleagues about. It's disturbing to me that we don't have more Black representation, not especially now when it comes to elected leadership, but when it comes to people running campaigns. I'm happy my brother Ron Harris was able to run the Harris, the Vice President Harris's campaign as well as he did. But we need more of that. We need more folks who are going to be working on policy or at the Capitol. We need more folks who are internships. We need more folks who are apprenticeships, we're bringing them up. But to the top of that, and something that I know that I'm going to continuously work on, is we need more folks who are getting elected. We need more folks to run. We need to make sure that there are areas and parts of this state and parts of this city that there is no good God reason why a Black person is not representing that district or that ward. We have to get so much better at making sure that we support each other, which is something I think has been an issue in the past, that we get behind, not just, rah, but we write checks, we financially support folks, we show up, we volunteer, we give our all to make sure that we have more Black and brown people in that legislature. And that is something we do need to work harder at and be better at doing.
I note Brother Emmanuel Bro says, good afternoon. He's watching from the George Floyd Memorial Square in Minneapolis. Emmanuel, let me do this. If you send a note, Emmanuel, to Cooper@insightnews.com, I want to send a link to you and have you join this conversation as well. And if there's anybody else that's in the listening audience that wants to be on the program, just send a note to Cooper, COOPER, @insightnews.com, and we'll bring you the conversation. It's an important conversation, and we're glad that you're checking us out. Corey, thank you, man. Can you stay longer? I'll keep you to the last minute.
I always want to stay on. I've got to jump off, but I got to
go. Okay.
Anytime you need me, I enjoy the conversation. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for continuously bringing these important topics to bear.
Appreciate it. We'll see you a little later on. In the meantime, what I want to do is pull up the upcoming issue of Insight News, our Monday edition. Today is Thursday. We went to press this morning with Monday's edition, and I kind of want to share with you some of the stories that we're running in the paper that highlight the coverage we've been doing. We use a combination of sources. The Associated Press we use for our main cover story. We edited that story. And then we have a couple of excellent articles, commentaries by one of our young columnists. She was on 3 days in a row this week. Marvelous. And from my point of view, and I think Jeff Hayden would agree with this, he said so, she represents the future that we've been hoping for. Let me pull the page up, bring it on. And again, as I kind of walk through some of the stories here, those who are listening, love to have you weigh in on the conversation and be part of the conversation as well. Well, obviously, we've got the two contestants here And scroll down, Cooper, if you want to. The story we use, we actually edited a piece from the Associated Press, and we didn't use a headline. The headline really wasn't necessary, but the story leads saying that Democrat Kamala Harris has urged unity in a concession speech at Howard University following her defeat to Republican Donald Trump. The election results prompted foreign leaders and President Joe Biden to congratulate Trump and left Democrats downtrodden after the former president scored victories in swing states. His victory was felt down ballot, with the GOP reclaiming control of the Senate by flipping seats in Montana, West Virginia, and Ohio. House Republicans held the upper hand to retain control through though the lower chambers Democrats insisted on Wednesday night that the potential for their majority was still in play. Well, as it turns out, and as our previous guest, Corey D, just said, didn't happen. Right now, the Republicans have what we had here in Minnesota, and that is the trifecta: control of the executive, the president's, and control of the House, and control of the Senate. And, Trump, it said, this is an article, again, we compiled this from reports from Associated Press, said that he's going to shake up some of democracy's pillars. Well, look at the story. The story is available right now on issue.com. You can get the entire edition at issue.com/inside news. Issue is ISSUU. .com/inside news. There it is at the bottom of the screen. Check it out. And I'm going to scroll over to a couple of the articles on page 2. Maybe flip to the next page, if you would, Cooper, to the 2 pieces written by our new and young columnist. You can make it bigger for me. A hard lesson and a call to reclaim the fight is the top story. So this was the story written by Haley Taylor Schlitz. She's a young attorney, 22 years old, on the staff of Minnesota's Attorney General Keith Ellison, an amazing young person. We're pleased to have her join us as a regular and frequent columnist and contributor to the Conversation with Al McFarlane. This was the piece after the results came in. If you scroll up a little bit, Cooper, the piece beneath that is a story she wrote. No, scroll down, I guess, the other way. This was the piece she wrote before the election, and she was talking about the generation's defining moment, voting for our future. She said, this is like on Tuesday, as she wrote, or Monday, as she wrote, as I stood along among fellow Minnesotans at a DFL Get Out the Vote event in Minneapolis, listening to Attorney General Keith Ellison and Governor Peggy Flanagan, I felt the weight of the election more than ever. Their words underscored a pivotal truth. Our nation stands at a crossroads, and the direction that we choose will shape not just the next 4 years, but the next 60. Wow, that's weight. And she said that Attorney General Ellison, see if I can make this larger for me to read. Maybe you can make it a little bit larger. There we go. Okay, now I'll scroll over. She said the Attorney General Ellison highlighted the progress we've made in Minnesota, meaning universal school meals, legalized marijuana, protecting reproductive rights, and restoring voting rights for formerly incarcerated individuals. She said these achievements are not just policy wins, they're also investments in our communities and our future. She said Lieutenant Governor Flanagan reminded us that when we vote, we win, emphasizing the power each of us holds to influence the trajectory of our nation. And so it's a good piece, and it's a piece that reflects a sense of hope. And I'm proud that this young activist, young leader, is able to articulate her assessment of the situation and of the challenges and of the future. So, Cooper, if you roll down to the top story, this is the piece that she wrote following the results. So, scroll down off to the top of the page and then make that larger because I want to share with that. Her title, A Hard Lesson and a Call to Reclaim Our Place in the Fight. Again, an article, a column, these both in the upcoming Monday edition of Insight News. Articles, columns by Haley Taylor Schlitz, Esquire, young attorney, and she's a columnist for our newspaper. We're so pleased to have her on board. Last night, she said, was a painful reminder of the distance left for us to travel. For Black Gen Z, it was a night that challenged the very hopes we held for this country, a night when the dream of progress met a harsh, unflinching reality. We went into the election believing we were on the edge of a monumental shift, that our nation was ready to embrace her story by electing the first Black woman as president. We believed that her qualifications, her dedication, and her vision for an inclusive America would be enough. But last night, we were reminded of a truth our ancestors knew well, that progress in America is hard fought and easily undone, that the forces of resistance are still deeply entrenched. Scroll down a little bit, and that even our fundamental rights are fragile, always vulnerable to being eroded. For so many of us, she said, this election was supposed to confirm what we were taught to believe, that the arc of history is bending towards justice. But last night's results shattered that illusion. We saw in real time that we are not anywhere near post-civil rights, that the battles our ancestors fought were not closed chapters, but ongoing struggles. And that as we wake up to this reality, we're faced with a choice. Will we rise to protect the rights they secured, or will we sit back as those rights are stripped away? The truth is, this work is not new. It's been passed down generation after generation like an heirloom, too precious to be lost. Our parents, our grandparents, and our great-grandparents carried the weight of this fight with dignity, courage, and strength. They endured unimaginable hardships, facing down injustice in the streets, in the courts, and even in their own neighborhoods. They paid in blood, sweat, and sacrifice to secure the freedoms we sometimes take for granted. And they passed on to us not only those rights, but the understanding that these rights must be defended continuously, deliberately, and together. But over time, our generational connection to that legacy has frayed. We come to see the civil rights movement as history, as something finished, something accomplished and filed away. Many of us were taught a sanitized version of that era, a narrative that suggested our rights were secured, that the hardest work was already done. We learned about Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks as icons, but we didn't always learn about the sustained, gritty, community-driven work that made their victories possible. We weren't always taught about the layers of organizing, of building bridges across differences, of mentoring and being mentored. This is our call to reclaim the spirit of deliberate engagement. We need to look to our elders not as symbols of a bygone era, but as living archives, as keepers of strategies, tactics, and wisdom that are essential to the work ahead. They carry with them the lessons of hard-won battles, understanding of how to navigate institutions resistant to change, and the resilience to withstand setbacks. We need their knowledge, and they need our voices, our energy, and our commitment to ensuring that the next chapter of this fight is stronger, more connected, more determined than ever. Let's be clear. We're in a new era. We are in a new era of the civil rights movement. The forces seeking to dismantle our rights are powerful, and they are determined. This movement may look different than it did in the 1960s, but it is just as critical, just as urgent. If we fail to rise, if we do not reconnect to the wisdom and strength of those who came before us, Scroll down a little bit, Cooper. Let's get to there we go. The last column there. And we risk failing them and ourselves. We risk losing what was so painstakingly built. Our generation is now the steward of this movement, responsible for defending and expanding the rights we cherish. This moment calls for deep reflection, but it also demands action. To my peers, I say, there is no time to wallow in despair. We cannot afford to indulge in self-pity or to stand on the sidelines hoping someone else will step up. The work is here, and it requires all of us, not tomorrow, not later, but right now. Our response will determine if we share an America that truly reflects our values and aspirations, or if we allow others to drag us back into a nightmare of oppression, inequality, and fear. This is our choice, our responsibility, our fight. The stakes are high, but we are not alone. We have the strength of generations behind us, a legacy that demands that we stand tall and continue the work they began. We don't have the luxury of waiting or the option of giving up. The question we must answer is simple but profound. Will we be the generation that rises, that reconnects with our past to protect our future, or will we let history repeat itself? It's time to act, time to organize, time to come together, not just for today or tomorrow, but for the future we all deserve. The call to carry this legacy forward is ours, and it is urgent. We have work to do, and we have each other. Let's get to it. Wow, what a powerful statement. That's a commentary, an editorial that appears in the upcoming Monday edition of Insight News. Go up, Cooper, to the top of the page for me, if you will. A piece written by our columnist, young attorney Haley Taylor Schlitz. She's an assistant attorney in the office of Attorney General, Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison. She's 22 years old. 22 years old. She's the youngest Black woman in the history of America to receive a JD, her law degree. Well, let me know what you think. And when you get a chance, so you can look at the story online at issue.com. But this is the story, the paper, Monday's paper that's actually being distributed as we speak today, tomorrow, and over the weekend. We want you to check out what we're doing. We've done a lot to try to continue a conversation about our power and our promise, our intent and our responsibility to be stewards of the future. That's the role of our newspaper, Insight News, of the Black press in America. And we want to engage you at every level. Why don't we put that away? And again, look at some of the comments, if there are some, Cooper, that are in the chat. I'd like to share those with you. I've got to exit full screen here. And let's see. If you're listening or watching, have a comment. We'd love to have your comment. We'd love to get your point of view, good, bad, or indifferent. And how are you feeling? What was Monday like for you? What was Monday like for you? What did you feel? Did you have butterflies or a tick or a weird feeling in the pit of your stomach on Monday? I watched the gathering on Tuesday afternoon on the campus of Howard University, and I watched the music and the vibe, the DJ, and the spirit of the people there. It was exciting. It was infectious. But later in the day, you could see the shift, and I think for everybody, uh, uh, yeah, the change was palpable as it was unfolding. Again, I'm Al McFarlane. This is the Conversation with Al McFarlane. I'm glad that you're watching wherever you're checking us out from. We'd love to have you in this conversation as well. So if you want to drop a comment into the comment section, please do so. I'll share that out. Thanks, Emmanuel, for you joining. Thanks, Jeff Hayden. Thanks, Choose Compassion. Thanks always to Michelle for her support. We started off thanking Suzanne Namanyanja. Haven't met you, Suzanne, but you're connecting from Facebook, and your comment at the very beginning of the program was happy for Trump. Well, I would love for you to come on and tell us exactly what you mean and why you mean that. And if there are others who are on the program or watching, leave your thoughts in the comment section. If you want to jump on the call for the next 10, 15 minutes, you're welcome to do that. What you have to do is simply send a note to Cooper at insightnews.com. He's the showrunner, the producer, and he can send you a link to invite you into the conversation. This is an important conversation. It's an important time. And I think that we owe it to each other to struggle to be together. Tomorrow on the program, we're going to have, so what did I do? After waking up yesterday, I called up my friend, my mentor, one of my elders, Professor Mahmoud, Dr. Professor Mahmoud El-Kadi, and said, Dr. Mahmoud, what do we make of this? What do we do? What are we going to do? And of course, his answer is, we're going to do what we've been doing. Struggle. And this is about the resistance, carrying the resistance forward. He said, what we've set up now, and what we're moving towards is the need to remember, to talk about, to elevate the struggle that we have waged successfully, transforming the country and the world, and fighting for and achieving inch by inch, micro inch by inch sometimes, the freedoms that we seek and that we enjoy. We're not there, but it's a struggle that is unending. It goes on. And he says that we simply must continue to do that. One of the ways is to keep the conversation going about our investment. One of the things he did, he says, we need to talk about the fact that Black people have been instrumental in 11 major wars this country has fought. And I said, well, what do you mean by that, Mahmoud? And he gave a list of our presence in every fighting experience in this country from the beginning, from the Revolutionary War, the role we played through the War of 1812 and other wars, the Spanish-American War. I jumped past the Civil War, obviously, and into World War II, the wars, World War I, World War II, and the Korean and the Vietnam War, and finally the wars that we have fought in the Middle East, the Iraq and Afghanistan War, Afghanistan being the longest war that the country was formally involved in. He said, plus the wars that were undeclared, but our people have been present, and we've invested our blood and our sweat and our treasure in securing and advancing this idea of the potential for this country. And so interested in knowing, what you think. I'm going to monitor some of the articles that are around. I'm looking at an article now from BBC. It's published yesterday, and the article says 7 things Trump says he will do as president. I'll just read a couple of paragraphs of it, summarizing that. But again, crediting the BBC, their website at bbc.com news. Donald Trump is set to return to the White House, having promised action on issues including immigration, the economy, and the war in Ukraine. He looks likely to enjoy plenty of support for his political agenda in Congress after his Republican Party regained control of the Senate. In his victory speech, Trump vowed he would govern by a simple motto: promises made, promises kept. He said, we're going to keep our promises. But in some cases, he's given little detail of how he might achieve his aims. And asked in 2023 by Fox News whether he'd abuse his power or target political opponents, he replied he would not, except for day one. Open quote, no, 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 other than day one. We're closing the border and we're drilling, drilling, drilling. After that, I'm not a dictator. Okay, all right. Well, that's one comment. Let me go back to another here. Let's see. This would be a comment from Al Jazeera. Let me pull this one up. Al Jazeera. And let's see. Al Jazeera says in an article, I think this article is dated today, February 7th. It's an article by Lorraine Melinder. The headline says, Trump elected president, what happens to the court cases against him? The sub-headline says, from January 6th to Stormy Daniels, can Trump now expect presidential immunity from charges? And if so, for how long? The artwork, and it just shows Trump looking at an image of the New York State courts. And it says, this is a sketch of President-elect Donald Trump in a Manhattan courtroom in May of 2024 during his trial on charges of falsifying business records to conceal money paid to silence porn star Stormy Daniels. The artwork is by Jane Rosenberg of Reuters. The article by Lorraine Melinder, I'll paraphrase, says that Donald Trump has many reasons to celebrate his victory in the United States presidential election, but one is out. The president-elect could now be freed of the criminal cases that have been hanging over him like a sword of Damocles, at the very least, while he remains in the White House. Over much of the past year, Trump has been battling four simultaneous prosecutions, two related to his effort to overturn the 2020 election results, and one on his mishandling of top secret state documents, and one over his hush money payments to adult film star Stormy Daniels. Just hours after his declared win on Wednesday, federal officials were already looking at ways of winding down two cases relating to election interference and mishandling of classified documents under the assumption that sitting U.S. presidents cannot be prosecuted or jailed while in office. That assumption is based on a longstanding U.S. Department of Justice policy dating back to 1973 and affirmed in 2000 that maintains that sitting presidents cannot be tried or jailed while in office. Trump will be further emboldened by a Supreme Court ruling in July granting presidents absolute immunity from prosecution for official acts and a presumption of immunity for broader crimes when links to the job can be proven, no matter how glancing. Well, that's another one. Let's go back to some other reports that we've kind of pulled up to share with you today. Again, if you have comments, we'd love to have you comment. We're getting set up for a few minutes here with a friend and colleague of mine, Wilfred Harris. Wilfred, I see you in the back room there. Let me try to pull you into the conversation.
Okay, sir.
Good afternoon.
Okay.
You can, yeah. Wilfred Harris is an author of several books on Liberia and Liberian-American relations. Wilfred, welcome. We've got about 10 minutes left. Thank you for being here, but you're going to be with us
No
tomorrow as
problem.
well. But let me get your gut reaction, yours personally, and what statements can you make about the Liberian community and its assessment of the election results?
You know, I'll be very candid with you. The situation with the election really shocked the Liberian community. In the sense that, you know, we like to see things happen and we like to see the person, the better person succeed. Better in a sense that you appeal to the voting public as well as to your conscience. And I watched the election and I told my wife, I said, there's no way that Kamala will end up losing. I said to her jokingly, I said, not because her last name is Harris. I said, but I think she has, the ingredients and the support to make a difference. But what do we do now, Al? After the battle, you just got to go back to the drawing board and support the winner.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, that's where we are right now.
So you say you go back and support the winner. What does that mean? How do we support the winner?
Support the winner because now this person is in the driver's seat.
Mm-hmm.
In the
So
driver's seat.
do you support him or do you challenge him? I mean that's
No.
so.
What the thing is, Al, you not just keep challenging. Let's see, you challenge those policies that going to harm your community.
Mm-hmm.
Like Hoyim said one time that when I get elected, the Africans will know where they came from. And the South American and the Asians, I think, should know where they came from. You see, when you're a leader, you are like a woman that has a set of twins. You don't sleep on the left, you don't sleep on the right, you don't sleep on your stomach, you sleep on your back.
Mm.
That's what leadership is all about. Have you been a leader? I've been a leader. And but when you get around, you deal with the issues. We have issues. And the thing is, America is the stabilizer of this world. That what scares the devil out of me. And the other people are galvanizing their solidarity. You got Russia, you got North Korea, you got China. And here we are today talking about NATO will not be supported like we have been supporting them over the years. The fingers are not even. You appeal to them. But if your brother is weak, you make your brother strong. Because no matter how strong you are, one man cannot challenge the world. Especially, one man cannot challenge a united force. And they are building united forces. Yeah. I mean, look at Africa. Another thing you look at Africa. People have been talking about a Marshall Plan for Europe, a Marshall Plan for this, for this. Where is the Marshall Plan for Africa?
Mm.
Where is the Marshall Plan for Africa? In the
But
meantime, guess what?
But do you think there will be a Marshall Plan for Africa, particularly from a leader who has described Africa as a
That's a
S-hole?
H-hole.
The language he's used has been
Yes.
horrific, right? So
Yes.
he's sort of continued to create the
That
mental picture
dehumanize.
of the worthlessness and of the
Yeah.
lack of humanity of African people.
Yes. But this is not the first time. The
Mm.
slave master used to say what? The slaves were lazy. But guess what?
They built the
They
world.
cut the trees down.
Mm-hmm.
They planted the cotton, they planted the corn, they planted the food, they harvested the food, they cooked the food, they brought it on the table, hid the food. Then they had to take the dishes and wash the dishes and start the process all over. Yet and still, he said they are lazy. Africans are not lazy people. Africans are not lazy people. You know, I apologize to differ, but when you look at the situation right now, Africa is being dehumanized.
Mm-hmm.
Denigrated. The Asians, look, you go to a place like Liberia, and Liberia is the strongest hold America has. I would not say in Africa, in the world. Liberia had carried the burden of America since day one. Like one of my books I wrote, 10 African American president, founding fathers of Liberia. If you get a chance, read that book. The first president of Liberia, Joseph Jingin Rawa. Joseph Jingin Rawa first cousin to Mary Todd, who was the wife of Abraham Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
He went to Liberia. He came from Norfolk, Virginia. If you're on Highway 75, going to Washington, D.C., going to Virginia, there's an exit that said Norfolk. Take it and go through the first street that is going across and go into the park. You will see the statue there that said, "This son of Virginia." became the first president of the West African Republic, Liberia.
Tell you what, Wilfred, let's continue this conversation tomorrow when we have Dr. Professor
Oh,
Mahmoud Al-Qadi here to
thank
talk
you.
about this. We want to, and let's invite the Liberian and the West African community to the conversation. So maybe today and tonight we can send some emails out to our friends, and let's look at the perception of what this election will mean, both for the naturalized citizens who are from West Africa, Liberia, and beyond, and also for those of us who have families in the Caribbean or in Latin America or in Africa or Europe. Let's have that conversation. I just want to shout out Vinny C., who sent a note, Vinny, saying Trump 2024, baby, US. So I suppose that means you're happy. Thank you for joining. I'm Al McFarlane. See you. Excuse me. See you tomorrow. Take care.
Yeah.
Wilfred Harris, thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you so much, Al.
Right.
Thank you, sir.